tiny discrete words at the 6 o'clock subdial that said tourbillon that give you a clue that this watch also features a tourbillon.
Yep, that's
and
right.
this is from a technical like firepower perspective. This is like having two freaking desert eagles like loaded.
It's like two desert you get in a plastic bag, bro.
Guys, Wei and Constant Kwong, and we're here to talk to you about the ultimate stealth Patek Philippe's.
That's right. Yeah.
But Constant, what is a stealth watch?
So stealth watch is what we normally say that is watches that's under the radar, basically. That's all. Like stealth, like literally under the radar. You don't even know that.
Yeah, I guess the whole reason we bring this topic up is we wanted to talk about watches that are exactly the contrast of the hype watches. I think the interesting thing that happens to you as a collector is the more you learn, the less you want people to be aware of what you're wearing. You know?
Actually, kind of right, yeah.
You know, so like I guess the deeper you kind of go down the rabbit hole of watch knowledge, the less you want to wear things that are such, immediate like symbols, watches that are fashionable or happen to be in the spotlight in contemporary culture. And you want to wear things that you've discovered that you love, that are incredible examples of technical innovation, incredible finishing, have amazing stories related to that, probably are quite rare, but actually somehow the majority of people don't really know about, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a certain sort of like delicious like reward that you get from being a guy where people look at your watch and they're like, meh, but actually you're wearing something incredibly cool and incredibly rare. And we want to give you guys 5 examples of what we consider to be the ultimate stealth.
That's right.
Patek Philippe's. Why Patek Philippe? Because I guess there's nothing more stealth than a Patek Philippe at that level as well, right? So the first watch that I want to talk about is the reference 3939H.
Oh, that's a good one.
So let's talk a little bit about Patek Philippe minute repeaters, right? So Patek Philippe has always been one of the greatest pioneers in minute repeaters, but it was Philip Stern, Terry Stern's dad, who decided to reintroduce the world to the minute repeater in 1989 in wristwatch format, the 3979 and 3974. But what was really cool about both of these watches is that they featured the world's first truly modern minute repeater movement. Why? This is Patek Philippe's first in-house minute repeater. The movement is called the R27.
Okay.
It's an automatic movement that features a micro rotor, obviously a free sprung balance as with all Patek Philippe's, and also a pair of hammers and 2 gongs that are striking out the times in hours, quarters, and minutes on the back of the watch.
Oh, okay.
And it's automatic, which is super dope, right?
Yeah.
So Philip Stern decides to make 2 watches to reintroduce his complication to the world. He creates a 3974, which I know is one of your favorite watches.
Right.
It's a 36 mm perpetual calendar minute repeater, which is absolutely sublime.
Amazing.
But he creates kind of an even cooler watch to me, which is a 33 mm watch, right? And you're gonna be like, 33 mm, that's tiny. Well, in the context of 1989, that was a cool size, right?
The lady size.
It's not a lady size, it's a dude size, right?
Yeah,
but anyway, 33
right.
mm in this beautiful automatic minute repeater, and that is reference 3979,
Yes, that's
right?
right, yeah.
It's also distinguished by having a small seconds indicator
That's right.
at 6
Yes.
o'clock.
Yes.
So then 3 years later, Philip Stern then just drops a bomb on the world with the 3939. What is the 3939? Well, the interesting thing is it's Patek Philippe's first wristwatch tourbillon.
Okay.
The first wristwatch tourbillon that Patek Philippe made, but it's not enough for Philip Stern to just drop a wristwatch tourbillon. On top of that, bro, check this out, it's cost certified.
Shit, it is?
Yes, so in the context of the 1980s, we start to see the resurgence of the tourbillon, right? So in 84, Frank Mueller kind of like shows the world his tourbillon, and everyone's like, well, Frank Mueller, you created a tourbillon. He's like, yes, I did. What do you think, right? And then in 1989, you have Audemars Piguet launching their tourbillon, designed by the beautiful Jacqueline Dimier, creating an even more beautiful watch, ultra thin, automatic winding.
That's right.
Maybe not the most efficient winding watch in the world, but nonetheless very, very pretty. But neither of these watches have any sort of chronometer certification. And the tourbillon at its core was created to eradicate errors caused by gravity when watches were in the vertical position.
That's right, yeah.
So it's a chronometric device, right?
Yeah.
So Philip Stern, when he drops the 3939 in 1992, is like, okay, you guys want to have tourbillons? How about this tourbillon? And I'm making it not just Geneva Seal, but cost certified as well, right?
Oh.
Which becomes the very first ever cost certified tourbillon wristwatch in history. But on top of that, if you look at the configuration of the tourbillon, it's a glowing tribute to pocket watches that were used for observatory trials, featuring tourbillons by Patek Philippe, but with the tourbillon mechanism made by a super famous watchmaker named Hector Golay.
Hector Golay?
Oh yeah. And Hector Golay, and so if you look at the configuration of the bridge and even the tourbillon cage, it's really a tribute to their own history, even while making a super modern watch. Now I said 3939H. What does H mean?
H means that this watch features not just a normal minute repeater, but cathedral.
Yes, so H means haute.
Haute.
Haute means
one up.
it means high.
Higher level,
High.
right?
Not like high like I'm high, but high like it's just slightly higher.
Okay.
And the reason why this watch is slightly higher than a normal 3939 is it features cathedral gongs. Now the amazing thing about this watch is you put it on your wrist. It looks like you just have like a time only 33 Patek.
Okay.
You know. And unless you kind of like pull your sleeve a little bit further back to reveal the left side of the case, and then you're like, is that a repeater slide? Oh, damn, I know what this guy's wearing. But even then, it's only the tiny discreet words at the 6 o'clock subdial that said tourbillon that give you a clue that this watch also features a tourbillon.
Yep, that's
and
right.
this is from a technical like firepower perspective. This is like having two freaking Desert Eagles like loaded with like
Bro, having two Desert Eagles
armor piercing like rounds showing up to a knife fight. You know what I mean?
No, it's like two Desert Eagles in a plastic bag, bro.
So anyway, that's through my first stealth watch.
Oh, that's cool,
it's
man.
Ultimate Stealth Patek, the
Yeah, definitely.
3939H from 1992.
Bro, how do I even beat that?
I'm sure you can, Constant. So what is your first pick?
So my first pick is actually quite similar to your 3939. I would say that it is a big weapon features in a small package, basically.
Like you.
So basically, I'm talking about the reference 5959.
I love that
It
watch.
was launched in 2005, and you know, of course, it is the first in-house manufactured split-second movement made by Patek Philippe.
Dude, I love this watch so much. And also I love the fact that our first two watches have numbers like 3939 and 5959, which makes it really easy for you guys to remember. So 5959, from my perspective, is one of the dopest Pateks
Oh my God, yes,
ever
it is.
created, right?
It is,
so
yeah.
this watch was launched in 2005, but it's a glowing tribute to a split-second chronograph that was made in the 1920s.
That's right.
Hang on a second.
Yes.
I actually have the facts in my fact-finding notebook right here. So 5959, which incidentally, the belief is that this is a super rare watch and they're making close to
10 pieces a year.
10 pieces a year, exactly right. This watch was inspired by a split-second chronograph featuring a Victorian Piguet
That's right,
movement
yeah.
that comes from the 1920s, 1923 to be exact. And this watch was at one point owned by a gentleman named Attilio Ubertalli, who was the president of Juventus Turin Soccer Club. And it was sold in 1999 at Antiquorum for 3 million Swiss francs. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was probably like, sold again after that as well. I think there's a price around 4 million Swiss francs from another auction. And here's a beautiful picture of this watch, which we're gonna show you right now. It's absolutely stunning to behold. Now, what's really cool about this watch is if you look at it, this is like a glowing tribute, not just from the design of the watch, but also in terms of the movement. Now, this is really interesting to me also because you mentioned this is Patek's first in-house chronograph movement. This movement is called the
CHR 27-525 PS.
Okay, so let's talk about what this means. So CH means chrono, R means watchapont,
Yes.
27 is the
Diameter.
diameter of the watch, and 525 is really important because it's about the height of the movement, right?
Movement, yes.
And then PS means petit seconds, right?
Petit seconds.
So it has a petit second. So what you look at the watch, you'll see it's got a continuous seconds for petit seconds. It's got a split second for the R and CHR. It's got a chronograph for the CH, right?
course.
And it is magnificent to behold. Now, check out this movement because we're going to show you the movement of the original Victorian Piguet movement next to the movement of the 5959. Okay, you have to say that these movements are pretty much identical.
That's
and I
right.
think that this is really Patek making a huge tribute to its past, to its wonderful history in split-second chronographs, but it's very different from the watch movement that will come out in 2009, which is the CH29-535, which is their first proper in-house chronograph movement in that it's completely different from anything else that exists
That's
on the
right,
market.
yeah. A really whole new movement.
Absolutely, with its precise jumping minute
That's right,
counter,
yeah.
its innovative teeth-like profiles and all that kind of thing as well, right? But I agree with you, the 5959 is breathtaking, and I love the fact that it's just 33 mm. So again,
right.
a stealth watch because you put it on your wrist and people are like, what's that little watch that guy has on his
Yeah,
wrist?
man, imagine
Right?
32 mm, but pack that kind of power.
So much firepower. Okay, so I know that you love the 5959, but you also love a watch that is closely associated
That's
with it.
right.
And what is that, sir?
Oh man, it is one of my favorite modern watches. I can call it modern. Actually, all of the watches we're talking is quite modern. It's actually the reference 5950A, which is made in steel. So basically, it has the same movement as the 5959, which is the, as I mentioned again, CHR 27-525 PS. So it is not in a 33mm case anymore. It is a tonneau-shaped 36.5mm case. Comes without stainless steel bracelet, basically. I love that watch because it is such a, it is a throwback to 1920s cases as well. Cushion cases was, I guess it's Patek's another tribute to the past as well.
Actually, some of the most important watches have been in cushion cases. You know, the very first Patek Philippe minute repeater, for example, made for Ralph Teeter, has a platinum tonneau-shaped case. The Henry Gray's minute repeater also has a yellow tonneau-shaped case as well. So I would say that watch is incredibly cool. And it's also nice because it goes to show you that movement can be beautifully configured in a more stylized case as well.
Yeah.
But bro, and this comes to watch number 4. If we're going to talk about cushion cases, we must talk about the incredible, incendiary, fire-breathing 3670.
That's right. Yes.
And what is the 3670? Well, this is what's so stealth about it. If you look at it on someone's wrist, you might be inclined to believe it's like, oh, it's just a tonneau-shaped like a Patek chronograph. Oh, that's kind of cool. But it's not. It's a watch that is like back to the future. It is a watch that features one of the most important Patek movements of all time.
That's right.
So the reference 13-130, which is built on a Valjoux Eboche, but was the chronograph movement that allowed Patek to usher in the modern chronograph era.
That's right.
It is the movement that in 1936 that they used to launch the reference 130. It is the movement that you find in the 1463 or Tasti Tondi.
Yes, it's also the base movement of the Rattrapon 1563.
It is also the base movement of the 1518 and also the base movement of the reference 2499.
That's right.
So this movement is an absolute historical icon, right?
Legendary, bro.
But of course, when Patek shifted to the modern era, they started relying more on the Lemania 2310 chronograph movement, right? And then eventually they came to the CH29-535, which that's their own movement.
That's right.
But in 1996, they were shifting location to Plan-les-Ouates. So basically, Patek used to have its entire factory in the same place where the Patek boutique in Geneva is now. But they shifted to Plan-les-Ouates, which is an industrial area, and for their huge new manufacturer created by Philippe Stern.
And it's still there today.
Well, actually, not only is it there, there's another manufacturer next to it as well that's even bigger. So, like, you haven't been there?
No,
bro, you got we got to go.
Patek, come on, invite me, man.
Well, maybe with all this Patek content, they will, right? So anyway, as they were shifting locations, right, the story goes that they found 16.
That's right.
Reference 13-130.
One thing I will note is, you know, that 16 assembled 13-130 movement are all regulated in 1955.
Yes. Yeah, this is also super cool as well. So you've got some extraordinary watchmaker who's going to put these movements together, regulated them, and they've been sitting in the drawer from 1955 to 1996.
Almost 50 years.
Yeah. 40 years.
Oh, 40, sorry.
41 years.
Slightly more than 40 years.
41. Just 41.
41 years.
Lies. Oh, lies!
41 years.
It's been sitting there for 41 years, and he opens it up, and they're like, "Wow, this is so cool." So he takes his movements, puts this in this stunning cushion case chronograph in steel.
Steel, yes.
Because it's the reference is 3670A for acier, which means
steel.
Exactly. And there's 16 of these in the world, and if you're wearing that, it's kind of end game, bro.
The Wisdom basically launched these watches in 2011.
Yes.
And you can only purchase it in Patek Philippe boutiques.
Correct. So we talked earlier about the 3939, and that being the very first Patek Philippe automatic tourbillon wristwatch, which was incidentally cost certified. Let's talk about, as our last watch, another tourbillon made by Patek Philippe, which is, amusingly enough, the daily beater of our dear friend Reggiani. What watch is that, bro?
So it is the Patek Philippe reference 5101.
Yes, exactly. So the 5101 is the legendary 10 days tourbillon.
That's right.
Now, it's really interesting because this watch was launched in 2003. And in the context of the late 90s and early 2000s, one of the things that brands were interested in was longer power reserves.
That's right.
So you've got the 5000 caliber from IWC, right? And then you have also Chopin, which is then creating the Quattro. But it's then in 2003, Patek kind of emerges and was like, guess what, IWC? Check this out. And they create a 10 days power reserve tourbillon, which is also cost certified as well, which is freaking baller,
Insane,
right?
Man. Yeah. But imagine the era itself, you know, in the early days of the 2000s, right? Power reserve is something that everybody is trying to strive for, you know? And having 10 days, and it was the first one that has a 10 day power reserve.
It's nuts. It's nuts. And then you're going to be like, yeah, but you know, you can make a 10 days watch, but you put a tiny balance wheel on it. So then you're cheating a little bit. I'd say, no, bro, they didn't cheat at all. They put a tourbillon, right?
They put it.
And okay, let's talk about this also. Like, why is a tourbillon such a challenging thing to put on a long power reserve watch? It's basically because a tourbillon is much heavier than a traditional balance wheel and escapement. So once you have this at the sort of end chain of your gears, right, as torque starts to diminish in your barrel, right, all of that diminishment in torque is going to be amplified magnified by this heavier
That's right. Yes.
organism.
You lose power much faster. Yeah.
Well, and it becomes inaccurate faster as well. So the fact that it's 10 days of power reserve with a tourbillon, which is Geneva sealed and also cost certified, that's like mind blowing.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really cool about this watch is it's a very unconventional case shape.
That's right,
Talk to me about that.
So it's kind of a rectangle shaped watch in a way that has this kind of outer flat design at the side.
Well, it's curved as well, right?
curved
And
as
it's
well,
like this. It's got this triple step architecture on either side as well, which makes it super Art Deco looking, but in a much relatively large size watch, right?
Yeah, quite big.
Actually, I have the
yeah.
measurements for it in my fact finding notebook here. The size is 51.7 by 29.6. And it's 12.2 mm in terms of thickness, right? And then the other thing that's interesting with this and with all Pateks, which I guess makes them such stealthy watches, is the tourbillons on the back, right?
Yes, right, yeah.
And the rationale for that was always that like, oh, the UV light will be very harmful to the delicate oils inside of the tourbillon. That actually was the rationale.
Really? Oh.
I personally think it's just because they could. Everyone who's coming out with their tourbillons in the front, he's like, we're Patek. We don't need to boast. Our tourbillon's in the back.
Yeah.
Where you can see it and those you like can see it, but no one else.
But I think it's also a long tradition of Patek, you know.
Which, incidentally, I think is at the very core of what a stealth
That's
watch
right.
is.
Yeah.
So you're keeping all of the horological goodness and all that technical finery for your eyes only, or to share with your bros and your favorite ladies.
Actually, I would say one thing is that if you remember, of course, the Patek Philippe pocket watches, most of these tourbillon pocket watches have tourbillon at the back instead. The front of the watch is always about practicality, and then the back.
Austerity in the front, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, that is our list of our top 5 stealth Pateks. Tell us if you like it. Tell us which one's your favorite. Tell us if there are any watches that we omitted or that you think belong on this list instead. And also, if you like our content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Thank you very much for tuning in. Peace.
See you guys.